My name is Robom Veldersom. I am from the Netherlands. I am a consultant on enforcement. I used to be an inspector on environmental issues, and I worked also for the Ministry of Environment as a policymaker as well as an advisor to the minister. I was manager within the Inspectorate of Environment, and the last 3 years of my civil servant, when I was civil servant, I was the project manager of the better cooperation between all inspectorates in the Netherlands. About 10 years ago I resigned and I became a single consultant. I am not only working in the Netherlands for inspections, but I'm also working for other countries to improve enforcement. This is in Africa and in Asia mainly, and in other European countries. Now, what I would like to address today with you is good enforcement and to be an effective enforcer. Now, when it comes to being a good inspector, there are 3 things that an inspector should be able to do. That is that he should know about the companies or the issues that he is inspecting, for example, chemistry, chemical industries, or hospitals, or educational schools, or whatever. The second thing he should know is about the rules that are applied to this item, to these sectors. And the third thing is of being a good inspector, knowing how to do a proper job. Now, being an inspector is very important. Everywhere around the world, inspectors are there, and they are there to guide the companies in the right direction, to be compliant and to help them to improve quality, to save the environment, to let people work safely within the companies, and to also let companies that are compliant not be negatively influenced by companies that are not compliant. So that's a very big task for inspectors. Now, when are you a good inspector? A good inspector is very aware of what his task is, and his task is what I just mentioned: good quality, good working conditions for employers, for, safety of the environment, and protecting companies that are compliant. The second thing for a good inspector is that you are aware that companies that you inspect are good for the economy and good for the country. So you are not opposing companies, but you are only trying to get companies to work within the rules that your country has made. So companies are not your enemy. That means that they need to be treated with respect. And that means that good companies should not be scrutinized more than minimum. Thirdly, you have good knowledge about the issue that you are inspecting. You have good knowledge about the rules that you are inspecting, and you have good knowledge about how to be a good inspector. And you will always be up to date. So it's very important to learn over and over again all the time. The fourth thing is that you need to be not corrupt. You are always 100% not corrupt, not 99%. 99% is not enough. 100% not corrupt is the only standard for inspectors. So you don't take bribes. The fifth thing is that you always work well prepared. You always work secure, fast, and accountable. 6, you will be clear about the goals of the inspection, and you need to know how you want to achieve them, and you can also tell the company how it works. You do not mix means, like laws, fines and powers you have, with goals. The goals you come for are safety, quality, fair competition, economic growth and good environment. You are empathetic. That means you are a good listener and you ask good questions to understand the duty holder. The main question that you try to answer is why? Why is this duty holder compliant or why is he non-compliant? I will get back to that, why this is so important. And the last thing is that you shall be unbiased, you shall be fair, you shall be decent, honest, truthful, consistent, proportionate and wise. If a duty holder is compliant, you shall praise him or reward him. Well, at least not punish him. If a duty holder is unaware, then explain and educate the rules. If a duty holder is unable, then he needs to be helped or be given advice. And if a duty holder is unwilling or fraudulent, negligent or reckless, then he needs to be enforced by warnings, fines, naming and shaming, withdrawal of permits and these kinds of things. Good inspectors need good inspectorates where they work. Good inspectorates need to help inspectors to be good. So what does it mean for inspectorates? Now, the management from inspectorates, they need to invest in the conditions for good inspectors. So they need to know, to inform inspectors what is expected from them. Like I just mentioned, the number of commandments for good enforcement, for good inspectors. They need to be able to discuss the code and the commandments with the inspectors and between the inspectors, and they need to put time, to make time available for inspectors to talk about it, to learn about it and to discuss about it. Good inspectors need to be inspired by the management, because good inspectors can inspire companies to be compliant. And you should appreciate, the management should appreciate good inspectors for doing a good job and to make them proud of their job. And that means that they need to be complimented or rewarded publicly when they do a good job. Another very important issue is that inspectors are paid well enough. In many countries, inspectors do not earn much, which causes corruption and which also causes that the best people are not going to work or not going to stay working at the inspectorate because their wages is so low. Another issue is that the inspectors need to be equipped and trained to do a proper job. This means that they need good transportation, good clothing, that they need to be aware of all the rules and be skilled of being a good inspector and all those kinds of things. Inspectorates need to provide this to them. Another important issue is that inspectors need to be informed about progress that is made. Usually I see that inspectors are sent to a company, they do an inspection and they make a report and they go to the next. But they are not informed about all the actions that are taken afterwards and to let them know how it's going after they have been there. That's important. Also, inspectors, when you want them to be good, you need them to be able to make mistakes. Of course, not very dumb mistakes, but mistakes should be able to be made and not be punished. Because if an inspector is afraid to be punished, then he will not be a good inspector. He will not be able to be a good inspector. If there's something going wrong in a company, then you must realize that it is not the fault of the inspector. It is the fault of the company. The company is the first responsible. So if there is an incident, then it's very important not to punish the inspector. The inspector is only responsible for doing a good job, for the quality of their work. And one of the last issues is that you should have laws that can be enforced, because a good inspector is tied with one arm to his back when the laws that he is inspecting are not very clear and that the powers he has are not very powerful. Now, what is important when a good inspector is going to visit a company? What is needed when he is inspecting? As I said, he needs a good expertise, and he needs to be well prepared. But when he is there, he also needs to have the right attitude, because inspectors that give the impression that they are the boss of the company when they are inspecting, they will not be appreciated very much. He needs to be clear on his working method so that companies understand how things work. And if people know how things work, then they will be very much more prepared to cooperate. So that also means that an inspector needs to be very clear of the purpose of the inspection. An inspector should ask the right questions. Not asking stupid questions is also related to preparing your inspection and to know what you are going to inspect and to have knowledge of the company that you are going to inspect. What also is very important is the proportionality of the measures you want to take. So be reasonable. Don't focus on details. Don't punish on details and leave out the big issues without being noticed. And try to make the company aware of on how to improve, on how to comply. The learning effect from inspection should be as big as possible. Aim for that as well. Many companies are visited by several inspectorates, so it's also very important that inspectors are aware of that situation, and they should try to seek cooperation with other inspectorates, with other inspectors. And it is for that reason that also important that you may understand that other inspectorates have discovered that a company is not very compliant, and while you are there you see nothing, no violations at all. And this may be correct, but it also may be the case that they try to hide things from you. So be aware of the information that other inspectors can give to you. Now, an inspection should never take longer than necessary. Don't spend many hours in an inspectorate, in an inspection. Usually it can be done within 1 or 2 hours, also depending on what kind of company or organization you are visiting. There are, of course, situations where you have to take a whole day or maybe even more days, but in general, most companies can be visited only in 2 to 3 hours, and the inspection can be finished. Also, look at the timing of your inspection. Please go to companies at a moment that they are capable of having you. Of course, you need to understand and you need to see what's going on during, for example, when they are working and when they are very busy. But if you have the possibility of going there when they have time, then that would be preferable. The last thing that is very important is that you deliver your report timely and that the quality of the report is very good. The companies that you have visited should be able to understand what you want from them and what you want them to improve and how. So that is about good inspections. Now, and I mentioned it already before, the issue is on why are companies not compliant, or why are they compliant, and how to then handle when you see that they are non-compliant. The rest of my presentation I will go into understanding non-compliance, in factors that affect non-compliance, and what inspectors can do to influence compliance. As I just mentioned, one of the big issues is to understand what is going on when you are inspecting a company. So the why question is the most important. The question is, why do I see what I see? Why is this company compliant, or why is it not at this time of my visit? Why is it so important to ask that question? It is important because you need to understand the nature of the non-compliance you have found, or the compliance you have found. Why is it so important? Because you need to determine whether there will be a reasonable chance of compliance when you are not in the company, and that will usually 364 days per year. So you have to make a guess, an estimation, and you can only do that if you have a good understanding of what is going on. The second reason why you must understand what is going on is that you want to pose the most effective measures to improve compliance. And you can only do that when you understand what's going on. Now, what factors are affecting compliance or non-compliance? The factors are, and I will go into them later, is knowledge, is risk awareness of the companies, is the motivation to be compliant, is convenience and routine at the company, is the social environment of the company, are the rules and the regulations, and is the supervisor, and the probability of detection for companies that are non-compliant, and the punishment or reward that they are given when non-compliant or compliant. So the first thing I mentioned was knowledge. Not all companies have the knowledge. So does the duty holder know the rules, and are the rules clear? So if the rules are not, and that's what you as an inspector have to figure out. Does he understand? Does he know the rules? Does he understand the rules? And if you find out that the knowledge is not enough, then possible interventions are to educate the companies. You can provide, for example, an instruction movie on your website, or maybe you point them to a website where they can find promotion instruction movies. Maybe there is a website or an app with extra information, or you can provide your digital checklists. There are good examples of these kind of knowledge that you can pass to them. For example, there in the Netherlands, in my country, the Labor Inspectorate has developed a website with self-inspections. It is a website where they can go to and where they can, they will be asked questions, and on the basis of these questions, they will get advice on where to improve. Or the Food Inspectorate has an instruction movie on how to prepare food safely and with the hygiene.
As a food business, you need to make sure you serve food that is safe by following the Food Standards Code and other requirements. Most also need a certified food safety supervisor. There are important details you must notify to the food authority or your local council. Food should always be correctly labelled so you can accurately identify their ingredients. If handling food, you must have the skills and knowledge you need to keep food safe. You need to properly control food temperature so food poisoning bugs won't grow, and keep certain foods separate to prevent cross-contamination. Be aware of food allergies that your customers may suffer from. Use a rigorous cleaning regime. Make sure all your equipment is squeaky clean and sanitised. Always maintain personal hygiene. A dedicated hand wash basin, soap and paper towels are a must. Guard against unwanted guests. Cover and store food securely. Failing any of this could make your customers sick and lead to fines, court prosecution, and listing on the authorities' name and shame register. Remember, doing the right thing is in yours, ours, and the customer's best interests.
The second important issue is about risk awareness. Is the company aware of the underlying issues, of the underlying risks that are threatening him or threatening the environment or the people that are working there? How big does the company estimate that the chance of the risk will take place? How serious does the company estimate the effect of the risk when it takes place? Usually, underestimation is very big. So, an inspector needs to create a more risk awareness, a better risk awareness. What can they do to raise risk awareness? Now, you should be able to explain what the risk is, and on the next movie there is some very good example of this creation of awareness of the risks that they are posing themselves to.
Haar leven op onze aarde was nog niet geleefd. Si la mort n'est pas acceptable, elle fait cependant partie du chemin de la vie. Laat ons hier even een momentje bij stilstaan. Je cède maintenant la parole à ses proches.
Je pensais que ça n'arrivait qu'aux autres. Et pourtant, me voilà.
Waarom moest jij gaan? Waarom jij? De persoon met wie ik alles deed. Met wie ik alles kon delen.
Il y a presque 20 ans, j'ai fait ta connaissance. Tu es le frère que je n'ai jamais eu.
Je me souviens de ces dimanches matins où on faisait du catch sur le lit de papa et maman.
We moesten nog een lijstje afmaken. In april zouden we samen naar Brazilië gaan.
La nuit du 21 octobre, le téléphone sonne. Mais ce n'était pas toi. C'était la police.
Die ene keer snel rijden is hier fataal geworden. Ik kan en wil het niet begrijpen.
T'as l'air trop con dans ton cercueil. Et moi encore plus debout là, à te parler.
Mon enfant chéri, je voudrais être fort, mais à quoi bon? Je suis un père qui enterre sa fille.
Het is vreselijk om je zo uit ons leven gerukt te zien worden. Je was mijn vriend, mijn steun en toeverlaat.
T'as encore fait le con sur la route et c'était la fois de trop.
Kim, deze keer kan ik het u nog zeggen. Wees alsjeblieft voorzichtig tijdens het rijden. Ik wil jou niet kwijt.
Ne roule plus jamais trop vite. On t'aime trop pour te perdre.
Je t'en prie, écoute-moi. Lève le pied. Ne t'en va pas, mon fils. Je t'aime.
What you also could do is start a campaign which is aimed at awareness of companies, but also maybe from people. And you can use that directly through mailing or by sending emails, or also through commercials on television and things like that. They are usually focused on a larger group of companies, or maybe even all the people. A very good example from the Netherlands is gamification to improve better performance by people by reading the small letters on cleaning material. Now, in the next movie you will see a very interesting trick that they have done, and they were very successful in letting people read better all the small letters on the backside of cleaning material. Another issue is that you can make an instruction movie and tell people what to do in case they run into a certain situation. Also, there are good examples in movies. It is also very important to be aware what the motivation is from companies to comply. Does the duty holder, the company, have experience, or does he experience advantage or disadvantage to comply? And does he have advantage or disadvantage for non-compliance? So if there is no good motivation to comply, then possible interventions are to remove these barriers to comply, or to remove the incentives for non-compliance, to create confidence, and to remove fear from moving for companies. You can also try to change their attitude towards the rules that they are non-compliant. For example, in the Netherlands there are lower emission zones in the city centers, and that means that cars that are very polluting are not allowed to enter. This of course may cause a lot of trouble for people to enter the town, and therefore the several cities have introduced arrangements where people can make use of subsidies to buy a new car or to get rid of their old car. And in that way you make it more attractive to comply to the rules. Now, there's also and that's a quite new phenomena, and that's called nudging. And nudging is aimed at trying to make people do the right thing without them noticing. It's a very subtle way, and there is several very good examples on how to do that.
born to live their lives. I'm born to dance. Want me to work like a dog in a full-time job? Haha, I'm born to dance. Don't wear no coat, no tie, no shirt, and even no pants. I'm born to dance. You shaking your head? Well, I'll be shaking my ass, cause I'm born to dance. I wanna shake it and shake it and shake it, shake it and shake it, girl. Do you wanna shake it? I wanna shake it and shake it and shake it, shake it and shake it, yo. Watch me dance now.
Smart.
And of course, a very good and very well-known example of nudging is the fly in the toilet for men. Another way is to create an atmosphere where people comply. And for example, the smell of lemon makes people to keep things more clean than they would do without the smell of lemon. There are several studies from all around the world that prove this. And when in the Netherlands there were trains introduced that were specially created to be silent so that people can work in the train, they have made pictures of bookshelves, so it feels like a library, when in a library people are usually keeping more quiet than elsewhere. So it was an atmosphere that you create to make them more compliant. A very nice example of creating more awareness was done by the Dutch police, where they wanted to minimize the selling of fireworks in the Netherlands through the website, through the internet, through all kinds of marketplaces on the internet. And they created a fake website. And when people ordered fireworks that were illegal, then they didn't get the fireworks, and they received a movie with a warning that says to them, don't do it. And you will see it in the next movie.
Beste A. de W. We hebben een bestelling onderschept met u als geadresseerde. U heeft vuurwerk besteld bij explosia.eu. Met het importeren van deze explosieve materialen brengt u uzelf en anderen in levensgevaarlijke situaties. Wanneer er iets misgaat, kan dit zeer ernstige gevolgen hebben. Het in bezit hebben van deze producten is zeer strafbaar. De straffen die het Openbaar Ministerie hiervoor eist zijn dan ook hoog. Bovendien zal u na veroordeling opgenomen worden in het Justitieel Documentatieregister. Dit betekent dat u vanaf dat moment in het bezit bent van een strafblad. Daarnaast kunt u voor het opslaan van dergelijke zware explosieven in uw woning door uw hypotheekverstrekker of verhuurder uit uw huis worden gezet. Wij hopen dat de boodschap duidelijk is.
And of course you can use reminders to be compliant. For example, tax can send commercials in which they remind people that they should do things for tax reasons or to leave it. Now it may be the case that the environment of the company may promote or withhold to comply. Do colleagues from companies promote or withhold the company to comply? Do non-governmental institutions, for example banks or accountants or customers or whatever, promote or withhold the companies to comply? These are also very important factors for compliance or not, or non-compliance. Now if you find that, then then possible interventions are to communicate what others do. Near my house there are waste bins, and on the waste bins there is a sign that says that people in this area do not like waste to be put next to the bins. So it is proven from all kinds of scientific investigations that this is for people always a reason to not leave waste next to the bins, but put it in the bins or take it home. For me, as an entrepreneur, I get letters from the tax service which stated that that in my case, for example, 93% of all the companies have already done a certain task that I should do, and which is suggesting that I am only a minority that's not in compliance. So it is also a very stimulating letter to do what I have to do. You can also make use of people or institutions that have authority towards the companies. That's what happens very often in commercials. Very famous people, they are saying to buy certain things, and this also works for companies. So you can try to make authorities for them to promote compliance. Or you can also create circumstances, the right circumstances, or provide the right information to comply. To create, for example, the right circumstances means that on license plate you can fix them to the cars. They are very often stolen, and they are very often not very well fixed to the cars, and you can, for example, create activities where they are invited to come to a certain area with their cars, and where they are for free being fixed to their cars, the license plates. And the last one of that is to make more clear that the behavior of the company. A good example of that is where the city of Utrecht, city in the Netherlands, where there's also a lower emission zone where certain trucks cannot enter because they are too much polluting, that as soon as they enter the area, there will be a sign, you are not allowed to enter this area. And how do they do this? They use cameras which reach the license plate. The license plate is connected to a database, and immediately after they've discovered this is a violator, then they will see a sign on the road, turn around. So that's very confronting someone with his own misbehavior, with his non-compliance. Then there's the issue of rules and regulators. Does compliance help to realize the underlying goals of the rules according to the duty holder? Does the duty holder accept the consequences the rules have for him? And to what extent is the duty holder, general, inclined to do what the regulator demands from him? If rules and regulator are not well enough appreciated, then possible interventions are the use of convincing arguments, which is of course always very logical, and to give guarantees that certain behavior will not be punished during a while, and create a time frame for the companies to change their behavior, because some non-compliance cannot be undone immediately, so they need some time. Now, if some rules are not appreciated and not accepted even by the companies, then it could be a reason for reconsidering these rules. If you do that, which of course is a very big issue because it's not very easy to change the rules, then it is very wise to communicate that you do this because of the misappreciation of the rules, and it will probably and very likely create a situation that the companies are going to accept the other rules. You can also try to explain the importance of the rules, offer alternatives of behavior, and activate ethical norms. In the Netherlands, we used cameras for compliance or non-compliance. We photographed the license plate of all the trucks that entered the zone, and they were automatically detected by the cameras if they were violating or not. Now what we did not fine them, but we called them, because the interesting thing is that trucks usually have the name of the company on their side, so it was very easy to find them and to use the phone number that was on the truck. And we asked them if they know that they were violating the rule, which usually was the case, and we asked them why they didn't comply, and they were usually very mad. And they said that this rule was to destroy companies, this rule was to gain money from them by fining them, and they didn't see any reason for this rule. So we explained that there was a reason and that this rule was just in favor of them, because actually we had to close the city down for trucks, but by letting very clean trucks enter, they could still go to the shops they had to bring their goods to. And many of the companies, almost all of the companies, said, we didn't know that this was a rule that was in favor of us. And we also said that the fines that would be given, they were not given yet, but they would be in the future, that the fines, the money from the fines would not go to the city, but would go to the central government, which means that fining or not fining will not benefit the enforcer at all, personally, or the organization. So when we explained that, then the next question of all companies would be, okay, if we are wrong on that issue, so how can we comply? Because it's not easy to comply. Then we explained how they should do it, and that there were some rulings that they could, for a short period of time, get a time out from the ruling. And every time we ended this conversation that with a remark from the companies that they said, okay, this is a total new point of view that we now have, and we would like to thank the enforcer for calling us and for have this kind of conversation. We have never had this, and it was very interesting to see that the compliance ran in only 3 months from 45% to 98%. And there were no complaints, there were no but one from the 250 companies that we called, only one company was very mad and stayed mad, and the other 249, they decided to comply. This is a very good example on the issue that you don't need to fine everybody, but also there are other issues, other means to bring compliance to a higher level. How does the duty holder, the companies, how do they appreciate the supervisor? Do the companies accept the supervisor to inspect him? Do the duty holders, the companies, feel that the supervisor is focusing on the right target group? Here's a very interesting and very recent issue that I've been dealing with the mining inspectorate in the Netherlands. The mining inspectorate asked me to help them improve the risk analysis. And when they asked me, I said to them, we should not make a risk analysis with only the inspectors. We should also try to involve the companies that we inspect, the oil and gas drilling companies, for example. First they hesitated, the inspectorate, but in the end they said, okay, let's give it a shot, we try it. So we wrote all the companies a letter, all the oil and gas, there was 6 or 7 of them, and we explained what we are going to do and that we would like them to help us with our risk analysis. We were surprised that all 6 or 7 of them responded positively. They said it's very important for us that you do the right thing as the inspector, and so we want to help you choose the right issues. We also explained to them that if they come to help, that we would not use anything they say against them. So this was a safe area where they can pronounce whatever they want, and that we would not automatically adopt everything they say. It is our responsibility to do the inspection, so it's our choice on what to inspect. The companies appreciated. They understood that and they said, okay, but it's already good that we are involved in this process. Now, before the end of the process, they already complimented the inspectorate because they said, we really appreciate that we are involved in this process and we really are looking forward to the outcome. This may not work in any sector where inspectors are active, but if companies are very reluctant to come up, to show up, to participate in this process, then it would be, in my view, wise to start it anyway with a small number of companies and do it a few times in a row, so that they will spread the word that companies that would not participate see that it's valuable to participate. So it's also a process where you can start. If standards are not appreciated, then maybe it's a very wise thing to do is to let them determine the standards themselves. The healthcare inspectorate in the Netherlands have done something like that. They have developed standards, and they found out that the hospitals didn't like the standards at all. They were furious. So they said, okay, if you do not appreciate our standards, then maybe you can provide us with the standards you think that we should use. So the hospitals said yes, we want that. We shall give you the right indicators and the right standards. The hospitals, they negotiated amongst themselves, and after 2 years of fights and negotiations, they came back to the inspector and said, these are the standards that we want you to use. Now, the inspectorate, they said, okay, these are good indicators, we can make use of them. But what they didn't say was that the indicators that the hospitals had delivered were almost the same as the indicators that the hospitals had initially thought of themselves. The difference was that the process was different. The standards that the inspectorate had made up was not acceptable, and almost the same standards that was made up by the hospitals, they were acceptable. So sometimes that's also a trick you can use. If you are inspecting, then it's not always very sure that you will detect violations that are present. So the question is, how likely does the company consider it of being detected for non-compliance? And do they expect it to be happening by a third party, for example, by civilians or by consumers or by other companies or by you as an inspector? And how likely do the duty holder companies consider it that you will perform administrative inspections and discover non-compliance? It's also very important to see how likely the companies consider it that the supervisor will perform physical inspections. Now, what you can do is to be very open and to communicate how often you inspect and how often non-compliance is detected. You can also inspect more often if you figure out that the chance of getting caught is too low. You shouldn't lie about all these things. And you should create circumstances or information to comply. And the best thing you can do is to communicate about the chance of getting caught. And of course the perception of getting caught is even more important than the real figure of and the possibility of getting caught. You shouldn't lie, but you can create the feeling that being caught is a good chance, is very high. Now, if a company is caught on non-compliance, then the next thing takes place is the question, will the punishment be serious enough to change their attitude? And if compliance is found, then it may even be interesting to reward the companies. So the questions are, does the duty holder consider it likely to be sanctioned when getting caught? How serious does the company consider the sanctions that can be imposed? And how likely does the company consider it to be rewarded for good behavior? Now, when punishment and reward do not have enough effect, possible interventions are to sanction more frequently. So many sanctions will do the same job as one high sanction. And also communication about that is very important. You can create disadvantages for non-compliance or advantages for compliance. What you see in several cities is that taxis that are compliant to the rules get the better pickup places for their customers. What you would like to show them is that better compliance will lead to better results for their company. And compliance and rewards can be done in all kinds of ways. They can be done in just putting their name on the website or in the paper that they do a good job. They can be financially rewarded. They can be given benefits like the taxis that I just mentioned. And of course, the easiest way is to reduce the number of inspections that they are getting. So to conclude is that what I've been talking about are the issues for non-compliance or for compliance, and on how to act when you find compliance or when you want to promote compliance or reduce non-compliance. I hope that this video is of help to you, and I wish you all the best.